Hello, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and today we're discussing the work of Dr. Sarah Elizabeth Lewis. Sarah is an associate professor at Harvard University, winner of the 2025 American Book Award for The Unseen Truth When Race Changed Sight in America. And she's also founder of Vision and Justice. And Sarah, welcome back.
Such an honor to be here. It's
We
always
are delighted you were part of our season 1 when we started. We're now season 11.
believe it.
You know, we can thank you for getting us started in such a miraculous way.
Wow.
You know, back in that first season, and a lot has happened in your life since then. I want to start with the convening.
Okay.
Okay, Vision and
Okay.
Justice
Yes.
and the 14th Amendment Project, Cheryl and Eiffel, you two put together 2 days of astounding conversations. I sat there just so amazed and thankful for what we heard. Talk to us about how that came about.
First, it came about through considering what this program offers, frankly, the contribution to society. Cheryl and Eiffel, our 21st century civil rights icon, extraordinary leader, founder of the 14th Amendment Center, and I paired up to think about what we could offer in this moment. And that was a consideration of the force and function of narratives to determine who counts and who belongs in society through a set of panels and programs that convened a range of other icons and figures, from Amy Sherald and Carrie Mae Weems to Ava DuVernay and Nicole Hannah-Jones, Jelani Cobb, all at the Ford Foundation, when Darren Walker was president. So that just took place.
Right. Well, it was just one after the other and you proved your point, because so much of it is, what is the role of art? What is the role of creativity in terms of keeping the democracy? So what are your thoughts now of having heard all of those people? You know, I mean, to have Brian Stevenson and Carrie Mae Weems and Audra McDonald, I mean, all of these people talking about how we save it. What are you thinking? Are we saving it?
The reason that Cheryl and Eiffel and I, lawyer and cultural worker, really came together was to understand finally the contribution that narrative offers, right, to a society. So for the first time, what the convening, I think, allowed for us to see is that we have a set of leaders, lawyers, Brian Stevenson, Deborah Archer at the ACLU, others, seeing and acknowledging the power that culture has for creating the pathway towards justice. And so it's no longer a conversation that's just in the so-called art world, right?
Right.
But it really is entering into the public domain, the public arena. And that marriage between the arts and law is critical for us to redefine who we are as a democratic society. And it's always been the case, historically.
Right. But not as you said, not acknowledged,
Right,
I mean, but it's
exactly.
this melding.
Yes.
Now, this was the
Yes.
second convening.
Yes.
I was there in Cambridge for the very first,
right.
and that was quite the event. The distance between 2019, the first convening, and 2025, the second. What happened in that time, in your estimation?
So 2019 at Harvard allowed for us to consider this question. 2025 at the Ford Foundation allowed us to do it with dramatic urgency, because we're now in a moment in which we see that the limits we're placing on society really are born of the narratives we tell about ourselves, to each other. We're seeing this through White House executive orders. We're seeing this through the way in which the visual landscape is sending signals regarding who counts and who belongs, with orders regarding which monuments need to be removed and taken down, what institutions should remove portraits of, say, Harriet Tubman. We're seeing urgently, week after week, signals that the work of culture matters, right, for our definition of democratic society. And the difference there became that it allowed for every speaker, many of whom spoke at the first convening, to understand the stakes of what they put into the arena in that conversation, because we now see that it truly matters, right? Lives are on the line with this work. So that difference, allowed for us to transform heat, the intensity of the moment, into light. It let us offer and illuminate a pathway forward.
Right, right. I don't know, when I left there, I mean, I was so taken in by all of the people and their contributions. But when I left there, I wasn't sure whether I felt optimistic or not. I was informed for sure, but the question of what lay ahead was troublesome.
So many had that response. And Sherilyn and I have been so grateful for all the notes expressing their gratitude for the event and the media that allowed for people to attend, even if they weren't there.
And we should say this is online, so you can attend even if you weren't there. And I highly, highly recommend it. So it's at the Vision and Justice site.
Yes, Vision and Justice Now. You can see everything there. And the lingering feeling was similar to that. I think people felt charged. They felt nourished, but charged. It was not a time to only seek inspiration and solace. It was a time to really reckon with where we are.
I like that, the reckoning. I think that's what we got there. It's not your imagination.
No.
You have plenty of confirmation, and the erasure, is key to it.
That's key, exactly. But when you're met with erasure, you understand the urgency to speak, right?
Right. So, part of Vision and Justice is I've fallen in love with all of your publications, but, this Coreen Simpson, tell us about this. I mean, I'm going through, I say, this is my favorite picture, no, this is my favorite Coreen Simpson photo.
Coreen Simpson is a name everyone should know. She is an extraordinary photographer, 83 years old, who's had a profound impact on photographers whose names people do know, Tyler Mitchell and Carrie Mae Weems and Deborah Willis, but who's never received monographic treatment. And it is a revelation to experience when you look at the images of Grace Jones and James Baldwin and Toni Morrison and
that Toni Morrison photo. Oh my God! Right. And you have an essay in it about Rosa Parks and talk to us about style and politics. So.
I mean, Coreen Simpson documented the history of style in the United States for decades. And this book is the second in the Vision and Justice book series that I co-edit with Deborah Willis and Lee Rayford, published by Aperture. So she has many photographs that document hip hop and b-boys in style. She's also created a jewelry line of the Black cameo, and Rosa Parks wore this cameo. There's a stunning image that Coreen Simpson took of her in that moment. And I reflect on in the book style as a political statement, but also the act of rest and adornment, as necessary for the work of resistance. So it transforms the image Coreen's of Rosa Parks from herself, the icon, silhouetted in the bus.
Exactly.
Right?
The one that we're so familiar with. Was on the bus, somewhat seen, right? And then the Coreen Simpson full on.
Yes, that lets her become someone who enjoys rest and leisure. There is an act of redemption, right, in the offering of her image to us in this way. So I was so taken by it, and I wrote on that for the book.
Right. So that and you're publishing at least once a year a monograph. The new ones coming up are
Doug Harris, right? Another octogenarian SNCC photographer, political activist, extraordinary work, and Eslanda Robeson, wife of Paul Robeson, who many don't know was a photographer and filmmaker whose work hasn't received monographic treatment. So we're very excited about these.
Right. And one other element of this is that you teach this at Harvard. I don't think you were fully at Harvard when you were here first with us. So, but now you're running the Center of Vision and Justice.
Yes.
Do you call it a center or the program? I mean, everybody wants to come there and take whatever you're doing there.
I love that you called it the center. That is what it should be called. It is an initiative, and soon we'll have a home in that physical way. It has a home through public programs, the convening that you mentioned, the book series, at the center, really, of gravity for it has been the course at Harvard
Right.
that I began in 2016, shortly after being here with you for the first time. And
Right.
it, as a lecture class, has a large demand, second highest at the university in the core curriculum. And it asks a central question of the entire project. What is the role of narrative and culture for justice in the United States?
Right.
So it takes the students through this question centuries back to the founding of the United States, to the current day, and looks at the power of performance, monuments, films, art to get us.
No, I know. I want to come take it.
Are you
No,
going to come? You gotta come. Please.
I mean, it's the perfect class for, for these times that we are in, amazing. So American Book Award, big deal, right? Talk to us about that,
Yeah. The Unseen Truth. Harvard University Press published this last year, and it's a book that I spent some time writing. I probably was writing this when I last saw you 10 years ago, because I needed to develop enough courage to state the main argument, which is, when are we going to give up the lie? When are we going to give up the lie that there's any basis for this regime of racial hierarchy that we've lived with for so long? And I stumbled across this moment when I realized that Americans had seen that there was a lie at the basis of this whole regime. During the Civil War, during what's called the Caucasian War across the Atlantic and the Black Sea, and then they realized that there was a fiction even in this term Caucasian whiteness.
Right.
A fabrication, effectively, right?
Right.
And had decided to move on. But to do that, to convince people that a lie is true, you need propaganda, right? You need the force of culture, and you need to transform vision. And so the book looks at how that was done, really from moments that we forget in our consciousness, but that live with us today. So that's the book that won the American Book Award.
Right. And it's quite something. Now, the book that you were talking about when you first joined us was Rise.
Yeah.
And I was watching this morning your TED Talk.
How many times have we designated something a classic, a masterpiece even, while its creator considers it hopelessly unfinished?
Again, which remains, just incredible, and we were talking beforehand and I said, oh, that was the other, Sarah, that's your other work. And that's the whole space that you were working in, or still are working in terms of what the difference between success and mastery and all those. So talk to us about the connection between the two Sarahs.
Yes. So the Rise and the TED Talk, The Gift of the Near Win, came in a time when I was thinking about the hidden story, the hidden narratives that define becoming who we want to be. I was working as a curator at MoMA, and I had been at the Tate Modern, and I was interested in how the life stories of artists give us guides that we need to understand that journey, and became fascinated with the propulsion that comes from being underestimated, having a near win experience, or having a so-called failure. I began to realize that this created for so many individuals and for so many societies the irreplaceable foundations that we need. So wrote about this and studied the life stories of different artists, inventors, icons. And so The Rise has been translated now in 7 languages. It's taken me around the world. I'm so stunned by what this book has done in the world. But there's a chapter in there where I write about Frederick Douglass and the failure in American society to really reckon with the humanity of all that are here. And that began this interest in looking at the connection between aesthetics and the arts and justice.
You talk about Elizabeth Murray and the artist that, who tossed one of her art pieces out on the sidewalk and her neighbor collected it, I mean, of what we think is, well, talk to us about the difference between success and mastery. And
we have this misconception that success alone begets success, right? But even psychologists tell us, Nobel Prize winning psychologists tell us that really what activates the mind is that near win, which is what the TED Talk deals with.
Right. I love it. Embrace the near win.
Yes,
come on.
Embrace it. And I think, we see it. We see the force of the near win whenever we watch the Olympics and you see the medal stand you noticed the silver medalist is often, looking more dejected than the bronze medalist?
Right.
But the bronze medalist is in a lower position. Why is that? Because the mind is thinking about what might have happened. Just you came just shy of a goal. You get very granular and specific. And so the near win, we live this out whenever we look at a Paul Cézanne. He didn't think his works were successes. In fact, he was on this journey of mastery, and mastery is about caring about that near win to give you propulsion to go forward. William Faulkner's work, The Sound and the Fury, he thought that was a near win. He wanted to rewrite the ending to have a more satisfying conclusion. And Franz Kafka wanted all of his works burned. It's
Right.
all these examples. Duke Ellington didn't love his music in the sense that he thought the best song was always the one to come, always the next one, right? And I think it's especially important, today for anyone, especially the folks I teach, the students I teach, to care about the arrival, not what's coming, not just what you have been able to produce and then put up on social media. It's about the journey, really. So
Right. Well, Sarah is still saying, don't worry about the bronze,
yes,
Right.
it's what's to come. It's always what's to come.
It's what's to come.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was thinking about you when I was at the Studio Museum recently, and looking up at, when they list the names of people who donated the spaces.
Oh yeah.
And so many Black Americans who now are philanthropists and have designated millions of dollars, all to create that space, which is,
Yes.
as I was looking at it, a new territory for us, isn't it?
It is. It is. The landmark feat of Thelma Golden in opening this new space is extraordinary. The philanthropists, among them, Crystal McCrary and Ray McGuire, and many others, foundations, is allowing for us to also see the work of culture and the arts as a gift to society.
Right.
That's the reason that they gave.
Right. Well, it's incredible. I mean, I go every week, now since it's been open, I look for everybody. Don't you want to go to the museum? I mean, it's just
I love that.
incredible to see it. But again, so talk to me about that kind of philanthropy where they've designated rooms. I mean, really soaring rooms. And so that's a major commitment to the art.
Yeah.
And now we have art collectors who are also, very well off, Black Americans who are buying art.
The fact that we have Black collectors and the Studio Museum in Harlem opened is really living out the dream of the Harlem Renaissance and the leaders there. We have to remember that we're finally able to harness and embrace the power of the stories we tell ourselves through the work of art that comes through the mind of a Carrie Mae Weems or an Ava DuVernay or a Hank Willis Thomas. But that wasn't a given, even just decades ago, that we could do that. It was during the Harlem Renaissance that walking down those same streets, in Harlem, that there were debates about whether art mattered, right? In periods of racial contestation. Why focus on the arts, right? When you should be engaged in a political act of another kind. And so when you would have the leadership of someone like a Mary Bearden, right? Or W.B. Du Bois or Elaine Locke debating and urging us as a community to honor the work that art has always done for civilizations. So it is the birth of a long-held dream for us to be in this moment now.
Right. Well, now that since I have you here, I have to ask you about Amy Sherrill and that whole scene. At the Whitney, a tremendously successful, show was going to the Smithsonian, and they wanted her to remove certain pieces, the transgender Statue of Liberty, etc. So talk to us about that. She's now at the Baltimore Museum, so it lives on her work. But
I just went to the museum to see it there, the BMA, and she jokes, Amy Sherrill, when she received her Du Bois Medal up at Harvard a few weeks ago, that she's grateful, in fact, that it wasn't in DC because of the shutdown. No one would have seen it anyway.
Right.
So there, things work out. But that really is her spirit, to think through the ordering of all of our steps. And the irony of her, Amy Sherrill, responding to the censorship of the painting Transforming America by removing it from the Smithsonian, the National Gallery, Portrait Gallery, is that she was being forced to do what she doesn't always, which is to take a stance against something. Her work is a defiant affirmation of who we are as a people. She's able to harness the power of portraiture and gesture to photography with the grayscale to salute the technology that has honored Black life. And so there she was, having to stand against something. And it was a rare moment, right, for her in her career. But what an act of leadership, right? What a force her work has been. And to see it together, I think has offered us a moment to reconsider the power of the portrait, in American society.
Exactly, exactly. Well, we had here in New York, the Jack Whitten show,
Yes.
Yes. Lorna Simpson, along with Amy. So it seemed to be like this burst of some, like with Jack Whitten, forgotten art, I would say. Even I had to say, who Jack Whitten?
Right.
And to see the extraordinary things he produced, it's the kind of, rescue work that you're doing as well. Did we just see a picture of you with President Obama?
Yes.
Did you refer to it as a sweet moment?
Yeah, it was sweet. It was a few months ago in Colorado. I was really fortunate to have some time with him at a reception. And my goodness, I mean, we all are looking forward to the opening of the Obama Foundation in Chicago. And it's on my mind a lot, the city of Chicago, the significance of the opening. I'm curating a show in September called If Emmett Till Lived at the Museum of Contemporary Photography in Chicago. So,
wonderful, wonderful. So you describe that as a sweet moment, I mean, and you've got certainly in your career now, sweet moments. Tell us, what are they? I mean, we've discussed certainly the convening and all of this work, that's being produced.
Yeah, I love being able to act as a vessel for what is coming through that can be a contribution to society. And I see that as working as a curator, as a producer of events and convenings, as a publisher now, the Vision and Justice book series, and as an author, and as a professor. And so I'm continuing all of those different lines. Sherilyn Eiffel and I have more events coming up that we'll do together, partnering Vision and Justice and the 14th Amendment Center. And Vision and Justice, another book I have coming out with Random House. But they all are really on the heels of a career that's been born of asking, what are we failing to see? What are we failing to acknowledge? Whose work must we understand in society? Coreen Simpson here, being one example. What are we failing to see about the hidden levers of justice in the United States? Well, we're failing to see the function and power of narrative and culture, and so created an initiative to do that. The courses I teach, Unseen Black Art is a recent course I developed. What are we failing to see regarding Black cultural production? Taking students around to different museums and collections and storage in their holdings to excavate that work. So I see myself as someone who's really going into the ground to pull up what needs to be shown.
Right. Well, so many, as someone gave us the advice that, you have those family photos, you have those, whatever the histories, save them,
That's right.
But I think that getting to the devaluing, what any of that history is, and as history is being erased elsewhere, the obligation. I love the archivists that you had in the convening, talking about, how do you save it?
Yes. The Astor Gates and Dr. Carla Hayden in conversation with Darren Walker and I at the convening was this profound act of reconsidering the power of the archivist.
Right.
It was. I love seeing Dr. Hayden and the Astor just really just bond over his understanding of the library system. And as an artist, it's rare, but we're seeing the power of the archive today. My grandfather and the work that I'm so glad my family preserved in our own line, it gave me a personal example of that. It's when you ask about the moments I'm most proud of, I think I'm most proud to be a descendant of his, continuing the work of preservation, conservation, archiving the past for the sake of the future. He's an artist whose work is in the vein of a Hende Wiley, right? Putting it before us, the very scenes that should be seen, not erased, right? And was expelled from high school for asking about the power of these images, right? In the history books.
I love that story. Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
I mean, New York City asking in the 11th grade, why does the history book not represent the full world of excellence as it should? And the teacher said, well, look, Black Americans have done nothing to merit inclusion. He just didn't accept that and to the point where he asked again and was expelled. And that stance is one I never knew about. I didn't know why he didn't have a high school diploma until I was a sophomore in college, and he died. And so at his funeral, my mother told me finally, and it just transformed my life. I thought, I understand now why he was so convicted about the power of the narratives that are contained in the paintings he would make. And that's really what began this journey. So
Right, right. Well, you are certainly continuing it in grand and important style. Dr. Lewis.
Oh, thank
I want to
you.
thank you so much for everything you've contributed and continue to contribute. We have many books forward, many more convenings, the class.
Yes.
You know, if you see me sitting in the, in the back of the classroom there, you'll know that, I'll say that this is where you actually need to be to look at to see what has been unseen and to continue to create. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. And the next chapter, we'll talk about technology and representation, all the things that are also coming up too.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, we have so much to talk about. All right, we'll have to get you here later in the year to talk.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'll have 6 more books and things to talk about. Thank you so much. Author, visionary, change maker, Dr. Sarah Lewis, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for the honor.
And that's it for us at this time. Thanks to you for joining us as well. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and we'll see you the next time.